Terry and I'm a marketing and advertising student at Leeds Beckett University. I'm from a seaside town called Whitstable in the southeast of England. I only originally decided to come to uni in the September of last year, after not getting the grades I expected and thinking about whether it was more viable to go straight to work and questioning the amount of money it would cost. Although I decided to come to uni and also decided to go travelling in January. I travelled for 5 months around Southeast Asia, starting in Thailand, then on to Laos, then Vietnam, then to Cambodia, to Malaysia, and then finally to Indonesia, finishing in Bali and then heading home. I left on January the 9th, and other than being a completely awe-inspiring and amazing trip, travelling independently pushed me completely out of my comfort zone and taught me incredibly useful skills for life and for uni. It taught me how to timekeep properly, as I was constantly getting on flights and buses which I couldn't miss. This is now useful for getting to and from seminars on time, but also how to manage my time effectively between modules. It has helped me to be organised, keeping documents like passports and visas safe. This has taught me how to look after all sorts of uni documents which I potentially would have lost beforehand. Money management. I now feel like I have a good grasp on how to manage my money, as just like uni, I only had a strict budget for the 5 months. I also had to prioritise what I spent my money on each day and adjust it accordingly. Socially. Travelling on my own, I was constantly communicating with new people and locals. This has taught me how to comfortably talk to anyone, which I'm sure will be very useful for university and the business world. I already believe that many of these attributes I learnt while travelling have been extremely useful for my first semester at university, and I believe they will continue to be useful, and even into my business career as a marketer. In the first semester, we did lots of activities which taught us our strengths and weaknesses, and also what sort of learners we are. This included doing the personal performance factors and completing the Enterprising You website. Some of it I did already know, but lots of it was new and interesting to discover about myself. Here are some of my strengths. All throughout school I've been told that I'm well motivated. I think it's because I've always had to put in a lot of hard work to get my grades, whereas some other people I know can just breathe past and do well. But I do know this is a great life skill to have, and I'm sure it will get me far in my career as I'm not scared of hard work. This is why I'd love to get a great placement and show this motivation off in Year 3. I believe that I'm a good listener and easy to talk to. I think this is part of my confident personality, but this has also been furthered by my travelling. Being able to communicate well is one of the reasons why I want to pursue a career in business. I love the idea of having a job where I get to communicate with many different people on a day-to-day basis. I like to think that I'm a creative person, not in the form of art or music, but in the form of creating ideas for projects or activities within my work. This is why I chose advertising and marketing rather than just straight marketing, as I'm very interested in the design aspect of marketing campaigns. I'm excited to start creating some marketing campaigns and using this creativity. The Enterprising You module taught me that although we are taught to tone down this creativity when we're older, it is actually vital for the brainstorming process, and all ideas should be noticed, however mad they seem at the time. I've always struggled with exams throughout school. I think this is because of their very time-intensive nature and the need to memorise a lot of information. This causes lots of stress and means that I can't get the learnt information from my head onto the page. Although through the personal performance factors, I did discover that I do actually work well under some pressure, so deadlines do help me. By the end of the seminars with Ruth's tests, I should get used to the exam pressure and be able to perform my best. Sometimes I struggle to take criticism about my work. This is because I always put a lot of time and effort in it, meaning I take the criticism too personally and sometimes to heart. I'm hugely aware this is something I'm going to have to improve to be a marketer, as my work is going to be constantly critiqued in the workplace and it's not always going to be positive. But I'm sure doing lots of group work throughout my time at uni will make me much more used to this, and allow me to use the criticism constructively. All throughout school I've had a lot of external direction, in forms of homework, papers to read, activities to do, and help whenever needed. Obviously I know that at universities isn't the case, so I'm slowly starting to know how to learn very independently, by finding the right reading to do on my own, and doing assignments without the help of tutors. I think this stems from a lack of confidence in my own ability to learn effectively with the right materials and the right methods. Through the personal performance factors and enterprising you, I was introduced to the three main types of learning style: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and the strategies associated with each. Visual learning is where you understand and retain information more when words and ideas are associated with images. This includes strategies such as diagramming, mind mapping, and outlining. Auditory learners learn by hearing and listening. Strategies include recording the information needed and studying by reading out loud. Finally, there are kinesthetic learners. They learn the best by doing what they are trying to learn. Strategies include role play or using objects or materials to reinforce their points. Before undertaking the personal performance factors and enterprising you, I always thought I was solely a visual learner, as throughout my time at school I always revised and believed that I learnt best by making diagrams and mind maps with information. Simply reading books and my notes never allow me to absorb information. I always have to guide for it by making new notes and making the notes visual in some way. But the PPFs and enterprising you taught me that I didn't associate with just one of the styles, but it was actually a combination of the three. I learned by trying things out and putting myself in this situation, like the kinesthetic style, but whenever revising or going over my own notes, I prefer to work alone, as with other noises I can't concentrate that well. Auditory learning relates to me also, as I learn well from discussions and debates in class by asking questions. But also when revising for my A-levels and GCSEs, I use flashcards, where someone asked me the question and I answered it to help me to remember key facts, which I found very effective. But in environments such as lectures, I just can't listen to a lecture and hope it sinks in. I have to go over the notes in my own time for it to be absorbed. Maybe my most relatable learning style, but still not solely, is visual. I do things often such as picture scenes in my head when I'm reading and processing information by putting it into diagrams. But I cannot learn solely from this. I have to use a combination of all three learning methods. Although not as simple as I first expected, now I understand my learning type, I can put it into use and adapt my studying. Although I feel that so far this term I've performed well and got off to a good start, there are some things which I'm going to keep doing and some things that I'm going to change. These have been a result of reflecting on my own learning style, my strengths and weaknesses, and my first experience of the course. I'm going to start recording my lectures, as although I can get the lecture notes in the VLE, lots of useful knowledge is said during the lecture that I cannot remember straight away or get time to write down. With this I can go back and take down more detailed parts of the lecture, such as case studies, furthering my knowledge and getting examples which are vital for the exam. Starting the course, I was aware of the importance of extra reading. I didn't understand the extent of so until I started. After doing the tests at the beginning of 3 seminar groups, I learnt the amount of detail, such as case studies, which was needed, details which wasn't always given in the lectures. I've now got a group of books which I know have the detail I need to create more of an overall knowledge, although I know that the key points are going to have to be written down in order to make sure they are reinforced. As I mentioned earlier, I learn best by creating the information needed into diagrams and pictures. Therefore, I'll start to turn my notes that I have made from the lectures into spider diagrams as I start to revise for the exams. As the picture shown before, I tend to use plain paper to cover my walls into mind maps and then try and go over them every day. Brought to light in the PPFs, I am now aware that I work best when my environment, such as my desk and papers, are organised. This gives me much more of a clear head to work with and prevents me from losing documents, which I tend to do. In spite of this, I still normally work in quite a messy environment, but I'm going to change this. In conclusion, I feel that creating this blog has made me think a lot about what my attributes and weaknesses are, and how these can be harnessed and improved in order to make the most of my learning and succeed to my best at uni and in my future career.